You're watching continuing coverage on CBS News 24/7. ICE confirms an officer fatally shot a woman in South Minneapolis. Of course, we know this comes at a time when DHS Secretary Kristi Noem had that exclusive interview with our CBS News correspondent Nicole Sganga, talking about adding more boots on the ground, intensifying those operations there in Minnesota. So let's go live to the scene. Nicole Sganga, one thing that was just revealed from our partners at WCCO is there is actual video of that moment that ICE officer pulled the trigger on one of those protesters. That will certainly say a lot, Nicole.
Absolutely. That video is going to be key to verifying whether what the Department of Homeland Security is saying right now, which is their officers were targeted by a vehicle that was attempting to ram federal law enforcement, and that an ICE official opened fire, what they're calling defensively. This video is going to be key to shedding light on exactly what happened. What I can tell you is what we're witnessing right now on the scene. We arrived in the chaotic aftermath when all of this played out. You can see protests behind me. They have settled a little bit. Earlier today, we saw hundreds of protesters and we saw ICE officials deploying tear gas, with one witness telling us they saw ICE law enforcement throwing at least 4 to 6 canisters of tear gas. You could see protesters that were actively choking amid some of these chemical hazards. Now, over my left shoulder is where beyond this van, the car crash happened, and just moments ago we saw that car being towed out by law enforcement. But witnesses that we're talking to at the scene who ran out, who heard gunfire, told us that what they saw was an active ICE law enforcement operation with ICE that were in this residential neighborhood. They heard at least one shot fired, though we are now learning from the Department of Homeland Security that there were multiple shots and that there was one individual lying on the ground. I spoke with one witness, his name Danny L., who told me he watched as that individual, who bleeding out, body limp, was carried by law enforcement out of the street. We now know that individual is deceased. And again, the Department of Homeland Security saying that their officer opened fire in a defensive way. You mentioned this earlier, Reed, but I cannot emphasize enough to viewers just how tremendous the law enforcement deployment in Minneapolis has been over the past few days. There are more than 2,100 federal agents from the Department of Homeland Security here in Minneapolis, in the city of 430,000. That is more federal agents than were deployed to New York City, to Los Angeles, and to Chicago. So this is a very tense area. We were with ICE law enforcement embedded just yesterday as they were carrying out enforcement raids, and you could feel the tension between residents here in the Minneapolis area and federal law enforcement. You could hear protesters whistling. You could see shouting. It is a very, very tense scene right now.
It's quite literally a flashpoint, and really history being written in real time as it speaks to this immigration issue and the crackdown in the United States, especially in Minnesota. We want to let our viewers know, Nicole, as we hang on there with you, that we are expecting words from the mayor there of Minneapolis any moment now. We're also waiting to hear from DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. She's down in Texas at border towns. You talked to her exclusively yesterday. Do you feel that protesters now are starting to just listen to what they're being told by law enforcement there on the scene? We had some reporting by one of the WCCO reporters there saying that they were being told by their organizers to go where there was reported ICE activity a few streets over. Are they now doing that? I can hear somebody yelling, "Start marching."
Yeah, we can hear some of the shouts by protesters. And by the way, everything right now is very peaceful. Would just like to reinforce that fact. We're seeing a lot of neighbors come out to sort of see what's happening. A lot of people who are curious taking cell phone video. We've seen some individuals who are part of advocacy groups, the ACLU, who are interviewing folks on the street. We've also seen a lot of angry residents here in Minneapolis, and we have heard about individuals who are now moving on to go perhaps pursue ICE law enforcement wherever they are next. But that has been a common thread here. One of the things that I want to point out to you is that this is not the first ramming incident or alleged car ramming incident that led to an officer opening fire that we have witnessed over the past few months. Just a few months ago in Chicago, there was a similar incident during an ICE law enforcement raid. It started as a car ramming incident between two drivers and a series of ICE law enforcement vehicles. ICE alleged at the time that those drivers were intimidating agents. One of the ICE officers then got out of the car and allegedly shot that driver several times. That resulted in her being hospitalized, and there was an impending lawsuit. Now, in this case, here in Minneapolis, we know a similar incident played out, but that victim right now, that individual who had been shot, is now dead, according to the Department of Homeland Security. And again, amid the immigration crackdown that this Trump administration has led, there continues to be a lot of tension in cities across the country. But given just how heightened the law enforcement presence is now in Minneapolis, talking to former ICE officials, they told me they felt like this was not a if, but a when moment, that there would be this sort of confrontation.